Hello, and welcome to another Arizona Hip Historian Virtual Happy Hour Tour. I am Brenda Holt with AARP Arizona. We are the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that is dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. And with a nationwide presence of nearly 38 million members across the nation and over 900,000 right here in Arizona, we work to strengthen communities and we advocate for what matters most to families, such as health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment, to name a few. During the months of May and June, we will focus on healthy living and amplify the call to action for the 50-plus community to develop healthy habits for mental well-being. As the country continues to grapple with the ebbs and flows of the COVID-19 pandemic, many are eager to move into a sense of normalcy. Many in the 50-plus community have developed coping mechanisms that show a strong sense of resiliency and the need to anchor themselves. Ongoing public health concerns, economic issues, and global conflicts are still weighing on older adults. By covering topics like sleep, stress management, healthy eating, and exercise, AARP demonstrates that its healthy living offerings can help Americans develop and maintain healthy habits for their mental well-being. Visit us for resources and information at www.aarp.org/mental health or at www.aarp.org/Arizona. Thank you for attending tonight's session. Have a good evening.
Folk, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Ahoy, mateys! I just want to let you know that this episode has been pre-recorded, so enjoy, and I will see you next week. Arr! Well, hello and good evening. I want to welcome you all to Arizona History Happy Hour. I am so happy that you can join us on this first Thursday of May. We have so much fun coming up, so I'm so happy you're able to join us. So my name is Marshall Shore, and I am your host. Now, today is May 5th, and so, lots of interesting things have happened, and we celebrate on May 5th. So right here in Arizona, back in 1917, the state legislature appropriated funds to purchase the old governor's mansion up in Prescott with the provision that it would become a museum, which it has, and you can go tour and visit that museum today up in Prescott. Now, it is also National Astronaut Day, because back in 1961, astronaut Alan Shepard became the first American in space aboard the Freedom 7 space capsule. It is also Cartoonist Day. That is because back on this date, back in 1895, readers of the New York World discovered an exciting new edition in their paper. They opened it up and there were full color drawings. Today, we would call them comics or funnies, and extremely, hopefully funny, or at least poignant, if nothing else. Also, today is National Hoagie Day. Now, basically, a hero, a hoagie, it's known by several other names, whether it's a sub, a grinder, an Italian, a torpedo, or some folks just call it a baguette. It's just a few of the names. Basically, what we do is we cut that loaf of bread open and pile it high with whatever we want. to fill it with and served hot or cold, it is indeed then a hoagie or many other names. Also, today is May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, which commemorates the anniversary of Mexico's victory over the French Empire at the Battle of Puebla back in 1862. The victory of a smaller, poorly equipped Mexican force against the larger, better equipped French army was such a morale boost and is still celebrated today. What can you expect from tonight's show? Well, we have a little bit of Arizona music history. We do a little bit of trivia. We talk about Little Arizona, a small town in Arizona. We have a beverage coming up, as well as From the Vault, which is something in kind of plain sight that you might not know is there, as well as a special guest. And tonight we have an amazing guest, but more on that in just a moment. Now, if this is your first time watching, you might wonder, who is that man and why is he on my screen? Well, I told you my name is Marshall Shore. And how did I get here? Well, about 22 years ago, I was working in Brooklyn in a beautiful Carnegie building and decided that I should change things. And so I decided to make a trip to the Wild West. Now, the first library I was working in was the Harmon Library, which has since then been replaced with a now shiny building not far from its original location. And it's pretty much still a really cool neighborhood. And we promptly moved into a 1956 ranch that was so many tones of beige. I'm happy to say that now it is a delightful seafoam and cantaloupe, just 2 tones. And friends call our house the Unmuseum because it's pretty much a time capsule. There's what my in-the-wall oven that matches my tile, all that buttercream yellow, and electric appliances. Thank you, GE. Now, as soon as we got here, people kept saying there was no history here, but I knew that wasn't true because every time I would go for a walk, a ride on my bike, a road trip, I came across so many amazing people, places, and stories. And so that's why I do what I do today. Now, there's also that post-war boom that I think in a lot of ways made the Arizona that we all know and love today. All those guys that were stationed here, trained here, or passed through on the way to somewhere else. And after the war, they were moving here in huge numbers. And in some cases, looking for a house just like mine. And they really changed not just their own lives, but also how Arizona and Arizonans live. I'm also known as the hip historian, but you might wonder, what does that mean? Well, that means I get to play with Arizona history. So like last night, I just was a part of Ignite 20, where there were 12 of us presenting in a format that was 5 minutes apiece with 20 seconds that just kind of rapid fire automatically. It was so much fun. I know those will be released on video, so I will share the link when I have that. Now, I see some of you have found the chat on the side. Now, please remember, you can always reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, email, or even via my website. Now, we also have our last Haunted History Phoenix tour coming up for the season. We'll start again once the fall kicks in and it gets a little bit cooler. So you can always find that on hiphistorian.com. And now we're at happy hour. And, and PJ likes to challenge me because he actually once made a don a special pair of glasses just for this. I'm not quite sure how it'll work because they're shades. So we'll see what I can see and what. Well, luckily, I don't have to do much of anything. So, all right. So our cocktail tonight is called the Riverside Rita. And it is Topozan Añejo Tequila, Damiana Flower Liqueur, Chelly Limoncello, which is produced locally, as well as fresh lime and agave nectar. And so here is a delightful. Oh, man. He always does such a. I'm going to take these off because I can't really see. I'm just glad I didn't wind up wearing my cocktail. So, but yeah, so I mean, he's been doing a lot of these. We've got over 100 in the bank. So we keep talking about, and I keep pushing. We need to find a place to go do and just talk about some of the cocktails he's been creating. All right. So we're going to take a little trip to a place called Globe, Arizona, which is in Gila County, population just under 7,500, was established back in 1875. But you know, if you go down there, you can go visit the Beshbegawan Historical Archaeological Park and Museum, which is a 200-room prehistoric Salado masonry pueblo that sits on an overlook above Pinell Creek and is quite fascinating. If you get a chance, I highly suggest you go visit. It's so much fun to wander through. You can also go visit historic downtown Globe, which is full of about 80 different businesses that are all in historic buildings. And so it's well worth poking in and out of those little shops and seeing what they have to offer. Now, you can also walk by the Globe High School, which is still in use today and has such famous graduates as Rose Mofford, the first female governor of Arizona, or Jimmy Lopez, the hero from the Iranian hostage incident back in the 79, or Letty Perino back in 1986 was one of the youngest major in the U.S. Army and a participant in the Black Hawk Down in Somalia. Also, if you go, you want to visit the courthouse, which was built in 1906 and is now home to the Cobre Valley Center for the Arts, and was founded back in 1984 and brought to life through local artists and hundreds of hours of volunteering to keep the building its integrity, but make it a great place to showcase the arts. Now, located right next to it, you can see actually the walkway is from the courthouse to the jail, which was built in 1910. Now, it's been restored and is now a museum and visitor center. But, you know, there's also been a handful of ghost hunting shows that have been down there. I think they may have done a couple of overnights between the courthouse and the jail of spirits hanging around. So go to Globe and you're bound to have an amazing adventure. Now, one of the things we always do here is actually, you know, I'm sure Deb is chiming in about some of her adventures here because I know she's done a lot of things there. All right. So we always have a special guest on, and tonight is no exception. It is my good friend. I'm so happy to be able to bring her on screen. So let's make that happen. Hello, Carmela.
Marshall, happy Cinco de Mayo.
Indeed. Happy Cinco de Mayo. So thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you've got some great stories to tell. But, you know, before we get into that, tell people a little bit about yourself if they don't know who you are.
I'm a native Arizonan. I was born in South Phoenix, right around the Harmon Park. Actually, my parents lived right across the street from Harmon Park when I was born.
Oh.
Yeah, I was born at St. Joseph's, and we lived there in the projects. And by the time I was about 3 years old, my mom moved us to Westdale, which at that time was a smoking place. Like 35th Avenue in Van Buren was like the Ahwatukee of today. You know, we had the first duplex theaters. We had the first Thrifty's ice cream, you know, rolling rink, bowling alley, theaters. It was just great. It was a beautiful place. But I'm a native and went to J.B. Sutton grade school. Isaac, graduated from Isaac in 8th grade. Spent a little bit in Carl Hayden. Then I went to Bourgade and PC, and then I hit the road. I had a great interest in theater since I was in 8th grade. So I did a lot of theater, which exposed me to musical theater. And then once I started realizing I could sing, I joined a band and that was it. I left Phoenix for like 12 years. I was out on the road getting crazy and making music. And the beautiful thing when I was on the road was working in so many different situations. I learned how to manage myself, my band, how to run sound, become a booking agent, and all that kind of stuff. I came back eventually because I really don't like the road, and I took up a huge job with the city of Phoenix. I was there for 30 years in their arts and culture within the Parks Department.
Mhm.
So I directed the Phoenix Center for the Arts for about 22 years and was involved in running a lot of the facilities, the Heritage Square downtown, the
Yeah.
cityscape, um, all those parks, that were so amazing. But all in the downtown cultural area, which just afforded me like a playground, to do almost anything that I wanted to do. And of
Right.
course, with the backing of the city, being able to produce wonderful things, not only the Center for the Arts, but I worked with the Phoenix Symphony for about 15 years, producing their Pops concerts and, the 4th of July, all those huge festivals. That was me out in the background getting burnt by the sun and, making it happen.
So you've seen a lot of change.
I've seen a lot of change, including when downtown went down. I'm that old. I mean, it was absolutely nothing. And when I came on to work for the city in 1988, there was all these plans to restore it, and that's exactly what happened. Then when ASU came on board, it was even more intense. It rebuilt so fast, and it's still rebuilding.
It's yeah, you can go down there today and there's many cranes still making things
Yeah,
happen.
yeah, I don't think that'll ever stop either. I mean, it's wonderful. It's wonderful if you like to be in that kind of a cozy setting. I live out in Ahwatukee. I'm a little bit further out of the city because I like to breathe. Since retirement, I've continued on with my production and my music. I'm a Latin jazz salsa singer with my band, Carmela y Más. And I do this and that. I produce events that I'm very proud of, mostly cultural and community. Because I'm retired, I now have the choice of working when and where I want to. So it's been great. I can pick some really great community events and become part of them and, do it for the peoples.
Exactly. And so I know we've got some great trivia coming up. So now our trivia is not like if you're used to bar trivia. So they're all multiple choice. We'll go through the questions and answers, take a little bit of an Arizona music break, and then we'll come back and talk about those answers.
Okay.
And so that's where I think all the fun really happens. And so now people can keep tabs. Some folks keep tabs in the chat session. Some folks keep tabs on. I had one friend who did it on his arm and marker. So whatever floats your boat, whatever makes you happy, you do that. No judgment here. All right. So our first question is, what was the first branch library for Phoenix Public Library? A, was it Burton Bar? Was it B, Harmon Park? Was it C, Choya Library? Or D, Ironwood Library? So what do you think was the first branch library for Phoenix Public? All right, moving on to question 2. Which Catholic high school is on the west side of Phoenix? Is it A, St. Mary's, B, Xavier, C, Brigade, D, Holy Family Academy? So which Catholic high school is on the west side of Phoenix? Question 3. What art space near downtown Phoenix offers classes to the public in photography, printmaking, dance, jewelry making, and glass? Is it A, Chico, Arizona School for the Arts, C, Phoenix Center for the Arts, or D, the Phoenix Art Museum? So what space downtown offers so many amazing classes and a variety of things? It's one of those choices. Some of you may take a class there. All right, question 4. Carmela's mom was a hat check girl, and dad was a bartender at what very popular nightclub / ballroom venue? Was it A, the Calderon Ballroom, C, Riverside Ballroom, C, La Casita, or D, the American Legion Post 41? All right, so where did Carmela's mom and dad both work? All right, question 5. Which venue was located off Central Avenue and the Salt River? Was it A, Mr. Lucky's, B, Sahara in Scottsdale, C, Riverside Ballroom, or D, JD's? While you ponder those, I'm going to have a sip. And what are you having a sip of?
I am celebrating because it's Cinco de Mayo with the Dos X. And my favorite, tequila roposo.
Very good.
Yeah, baby.
It's going to be a good night tonight.
I think so.
All right. What local band was acquired by Bank One? Was it A, Arizona Bank, B, Valley National Bank, C, National Bank of Arizona? Oh, and I saw you do a shot. There you go.
Ooh, I'm ready.
D, the First National Bank of Nogales. So which local bank was acquired by Bank One? All right. Question 7. Carmela was crowned queen of A, watermelon, B, the Fiestas Patrias, C, Suajarita, or D, copper? Which do you think Carmela was crowned the queen of? All right, question 8. What kind of scholarship allowed Carmela to attend Phoenix College? A, golf, B, theater, C, music, or D, dreamer? What scholarship allowed Carmela to attend Phoenix College, which is over now 100 years old? They just had a birthday last year. So,
Right.
Yeah. All right. Carmela is part of Carmela y Más, and they have been playing music for how many years? A, 17, B, 26, C, 33, or D, 41? How long has Carmela y Más been playing music? And our last, Carmela y Más has played as far away as Boston, Massachusetts, A, B, Himeji, Japan, C, Stockholm, Sweden, or D, Barcelona, Spain? Wow, those are all pretty far away. I wonder which it could be. All right, so while you are locking in your final answers, we are going to take a little bit of an Arizona music break. And so we are going to talk about now Mr. Onik Huchlan. So he came here to be a miner. That didn't go so well. He then wound up becoming partners with some folks who wanted to invest in gas and electricity. And so every time you turn on the light, his company later on became APS. But you might wonder, what's the connection between a light bulb you can turn on with APS and music? Well, his daughter. So her name was Marion, but she moved to New York at one point, was on Broadway, and her stage name was Haru. She then became famous for playing in Madame Butterfly, Puccini's opera, and that was her signature role. And so she really that's what she did for the rest of her life. So every time you turn on a light switch, you should think of Madame Butterfly and Haru. Now, also, while she was running around, she did wind up in a relationship with Mr. Ripley's, who did Ripley's Believe It or Not. She wound up in one of his cartoons as the diva who would take an entire day just to do her hair. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've been looking through stacks and stacks of those comics. I've not come up against that one yet. So if anyone has a copy of it, I would love to see it. So, all right. So now who's ready for some answers? All right. So question 1, where was the first branch library for Phoenix Public Library? And it's B, Harmon Park. So Carmela, I know you lived right across the street. What about the community?
The community?
Yeah.
Very well, very Latino. I mean, when I got the chance to, spend time there, because we would go back and forth from my grandmother's house. I went to JB Sutton. Then after school, we get on a bus and go back to South Phoenix, right around that area. Really vibrant. I mean, a lot of Latinos, of course, and Blacks and Asians. There was grocery stores, I think, on every corner. They had stores on every corner. I can still remember, frequenting all of them. It was just very powerful. A lot of music, a lot of culture, and kids who were curious, and it made me bilingual because by the time I was 5 years old, I spoke nothing but Spanish. And in order to go to the school that my mother wanted to take me to, JB Sutton, I had to speak English. So I became bilingual, and that happened very rapidly. My mother was a great educator for me. I mean, she had me reading and writing and doing my numbers and alphabet before I even started school. So, very interesting watching the different traditions, the culture, the kids that live there, and the community. Community was so tight. I mean, it was where you could walk out the door, you knew you were okay. Right. Being hanging out with everybody out there, but everybody looked out for each other, which is something we don't have anymore. So
well, it was like that was the first place I worked when I moved to the city of Phoenix.
Right.
And what I loved was like if there was a kid running in the library, it was like no corriendo. Mm-hmm. But it was like if you continue, we're going to tell your grandmother.
That's right.
And then suddenly they would fall in line and behave.
That's right. Because everybody knew each other, right? And my grandmother took in so many kids, that didn't have a home or who were hungry. I mean, she just had on a regular basis huge pots of beans and rice and tortillas. That was like steak, to us. But she would feed everybody in the neighborhood as she could, It was awesome. I miss it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was such a great introduction to Phoenix.
Yeah.
So, and I can remember it was like the hospital there. I would be like, oh, I work in a library. And they're like, there's no library around here. And then at one point, we painted it it wound up being a lot of chartreuse. And so it became very visible. And so then I could say, hey, look out your window at the hospital and you're going to see the library. And so we started getting people then from the hospital to come over. They didn't know there were libraries there since 1950. And I was like, oh, man.
Was that Memorial Hospital?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the place. That was a big hospital.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it was an amazing community. I mean, right down the street from Lowell School. So, I mean, literally the kids would like run from school into the library.
Right. And the library had everything. I mean, parks and recreation, especially back then, was everything. That was community. That was where the kids hung out, and did everything that we enjoyed doing, especially cooling off in the summer. That was the only cool place to run to with air conditioning was the library.
Right.
So we'd be swimming, then we'd run to the library, to go hang out for a while and be read to or do activities and stuff like that.
Indeed. So, yeah. So, I mean, I love that community.
Yeah.
So, actually this coming Saturday is the last day the public market is going to be where it is. They're moving to a new location. But a lot of people don't realize the first public market was in the driveway of Harmon. We had a, with PRC, Phoenix Revitalization Corporation, we had a card table that Cindy had been working with the city to get WIC ability to buy vegetables with that from a card table in the middle of the library. So that was great to be able to be a part of that and then see it flourish into what it's become. And it started in South Phoenix. It was
Right.
all those folks who'd been gardening in their backyard.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I think
when you think about it, most of the activity was in South Phoenix at that time because, I mean, it was mostly built up to McDowell, or to Thomas. And
Right.
then if you were going further than that, you're going into the boonies. But yeah, everything was happening in the Phoenix Stadium, all that stuff, baseball fields, all the good stuff was happening.
Yeah, there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
All right. So which Catholic high school is on the west side of Phoenix? And where did you go to school?
Bourgade.
So indeed. So where is Bourgade?
It's on about, I think, 32nd Avenue and Camelback. At the time, this was when I was maybe, 14, 15. My first year, I had graduated from Isaac, which was on 35th Avenue in McDowell. And the high school closest to our home was Carl Hayden. And my brother had gone there, and he was very popular there. He was president of everything, and I wasn't. I was very still shy at that time. But I spent about.
Wait a minute, hold on. Wait a minute. Let's go back to. I can't imagine you being shy.
Well, I was. I mean, I think I was always very active, but I was very insecure. Just shy. I was a little bit. Well, no, a lot of it. And it really wasn't until I started, in grade school doing some minor speech and drama that I realized that there was something inside of me that wanted to come out. And then I wasn't shy anymore. They showed me a way to deliver it, and I haven't stopped ever since. Yeah. But I went to Brigade. My mom didn't want me to go to Carl Hayden because at the time they were having a lot of race riots, South Mountain High School, Phoenix Union, East, Carl Hayden, South. And they would travel to each other's schools and just get in these ridiculous fights. So my mom pulled me out and sent me to Bourgade, which was up on Camelback and 31st. And that was a big investment for my parents. It wasn't something that they could afford, but they worked it out and they made monthly payments. And that's where I went. And it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, spending all those years with the nuns and priests. But their education system and the way they delivered it and the way they made you participate was good for me. Good for me. I started, they didn't have theater programs there. I really got into graphic arts, and I still love graphic arts, mostly at Bourgade. I had a great art teacher. And then my very last year, half of my last year of my senior year, I really wanted to get out of the Catholic school setting. I wanted to go to a public school so I could try to do some art, better art. So I convinced my mom on my senior year to let me go to North High School because there was only a certain amount of open campuses at the time. It was North and West, I think, were open. Okay. So I wound up at North High School. I graduated from there before I went on to PC. When I got to North, they didn't accept a lot of my credits from the Catholic school. So my senior year, I was doing night school, the day school, and correspondence school just to graduate. And I did. But it was there. I tried to sign up for art classes like the graphic arts that I've been studying at Brigade, and everything was full because I was registering in October. They said, but we have some spots in art open in the theater program. I thought, well, okay, as long as I get my art credits. And then boom, 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 I met Mrs. Twining, who was an incredible drama teacher, and my life just popped.
Yeah. Indeed. It's amazing, I think, how those unexpected consequences have such life-changing effects.
Right. And it was perfect timing. I guess I was just ready for it.
Indeed. All right. So question 3, what art space near downtown Phoenix offers classes to the public in photography, printmaking, dance, jewelry making, and glass? And that would be the amazing Phoenix Center for the Arts.
Yeah. That's an amazing facility. In 1988, I went to work for the City of Phoenix Parks Department. I got a call from a coordinator out of the Parks Department who was booking these afternoon lunchtime series, brown bag lunchtime series. And it was downtown on Central and First Avenue. And they would, it wasn't even really a stage, it would just perform on the ground. And my band at the time performed there for one of the lunch series. And unfortunately, the sound was so bad that they provided. And if you don't have good sound when you're a band, it can just destroy you because they can't hear what you can really do, and they can make you sound bad. So I offered and volunteered. I said, you know what? I said, I will come and work with your sound crew because I learned it on the road, so that I don't sound so bad next time when I come back. Otherwise, I can't come back. So I got a call. They said, you can come down and volunteer, and I did that. And I got to know the crew, and then she goes, do you want a part-time job? I said, doing what? She goes, booking this afternoon concert series. So 20 hours a week, I said yes, and that led to 40, and then I went full-time 3 years later.
Wow.
Then I wound up being the director of the Center for the Arts. It was something.
That is, I mean, I've taken, I think, almost everything that was listed there. I've not done dance because nobody wants to see me dance. But yeah, I mean, I've done photography, printmaking, bookmaking, all kinds of fun things there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still open and still plugging away.
When I first started producing their program there was like 12 classes. Most of them were visual arts. But by the time I left 22 years later, we had over 160 classes going.
Wow.
In theater and music and dance. City Jazz was formed there. Phoenix Children's Chorus was formed there. All of these amazing opportunities for the community and very affordable. So that's probably one of my biggest legacies that I'm so proud of, that I had the chance to do that and work with amazing teachers and artists and visionaries. I had, the opportunity to help create the Art Detour, First Fridays. All of that came out of the Phoenix Center for the Arts when we called in the community to work with us and said, what would you like to see? And those were some of the results.
Very cool. All right. Carmela's mom was a hat check girl and dad a bartender at what popular nightclub ballroom?
Riverside.
I am so jealous because I've only seen it in photos and heard stories. Oh my gosh. Amazing stories.
Yeah, it was a huge venue. My mom and dad worked there off and on for years. And there was two brothers that owned it, the Fight brothers, and Buster Fight and Bob Fight. Bob had the cowboy band and they ran the venue, and then Buster did all of the business. Well, Buster became my godfather. So while they were there working, I got to spend the time in a crib listening to everything else that was going on and running around over the years, getting to know everybody, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, all those cats would go through there, all their orchestras. And it was just very intense. Then as the years went on, it stopped being so much of a huge club like that, started featuring a lot of local people as well. And that's where a lot of the bands got their big breaks, especially the Latino bands, the Riverside.
Okay.
Yeah. The radio station was right next to it. Pete's Fish and Chip across the street. Life was good.
Everything you needed right there.
Yeah. Yeah, but what a history. Riverside Ballroom. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, well, and and I love that it's like, pretty much so many folks went to dances there, met, got married, and went on and had these amazing lives together.
Right.
And it was all because of the music and being able to congregate in at Riverside Ballroom.
Yeah. It was really something too. There was a black night, a brown night, a white night. When my parents were younger, you could only go on certain days. Then it opened up to the entire community, probably 15 years later.
Oh, because I knew it had the segregated days, but it was really one of the first venues in town to do that.
Right.
And so, oh, and then, okay. And then like 50 years later, then they kind of went open and just released those
Right.
boundaries. That's
Right.
so cool.
Yeah.
All right. So what local bank was acquired by Bank One? Ah, Valley National Bank.
Good old VNB.
Indeed.
I worked for Valley Bank for about 2.5 years, I think. I had started at Montgomery Ward's as a credit collector for accounts. And word got to Valley Bank that I was a good credit collector. And they called me and said, you want to become of a Latino management program that we're starting? Because they were trying to meet numbers back then. So I went in their management program to Valley Bank, and I learned everything from doing the safe to being a teller to a loan officer. Um, and I gave a lot of loans out to a lot of musicians that probably never paid them back. Hey, I did the right thing.
Exactly.
I really enjoyed that. That was fun. But they made me make a choice. They said either your music or you're going to, be banking, because I was in administration by then. I said, well, I just can't. So boom, I left.
So which building did you work in?
I worked in several of them. My first ones were downtown off of McDowell and 11th Street, where they took in the checks, because I really started from the ground up. They wanted to train me away. And I
Okay.
worked in the one in Scottsdale, one off of Thomas and I think 30th Street, something like that. And my very last one was 16th Street in Buckeye, across the street from Smitty's, the grocery store.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I love that you then were able to give loans to musicians.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody had equipment while I was there, What do you need? Yeah, sure. I know.
Good for you. All right. Carmela was crowned queen of. And what was the queen of?
The Fiestas Patrias.
So what is the Fiestas Patrias?
It's a celebration from Mexico, their independence from Spain. And it was brought here probably around late 40s, mid 50s by Josefina Franco. She was a community activist and her husband was a journalist. And they started this festival, and every year they pick a queen to, oversee the fiestas, be the celebration. My mom really wanted me to do that for years, and I was still pretty shy, but she pushed me in that direction, and that's what wound up happening. I became the queen that year. And it was interesting, running for a year, working with the community. I was 17, so, another big opportunity just boom, hit me in the face. And it was great because I met a lot of community leaders and learned more about community work and what Josefina was doing herself and why it was so important. I really didn't understand, I don't think, the importance of the fiestas or my community as much as I began to understand when I was 17, what our history really was, why we were here, and we have been here forever. I didn't know that, not really. It was just amazing to go through that process, and I was proud. I still am proud.
Well, so I've run into a woman who was one of the cotton queens. Mm-hmm. And so we talked about kind of how important that was to her and her development as a young woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've kind of been talking about it. And now I know I might invite you to that. We wanted to maybe do a panel of folks who have been queens.
Sure.
And just kind of talk about their experience, because she talked about how it was so life empowering.
Yeah.
And she was never the same after that.
You're not. You're really not. I mean, I think it just brings out things that you didn't realize that you had. And people need representation. They need community leaders. Even at a young age, I knew I was going to be a community kind of person of some kind. And it wasn't later till I really learned how to be a community leader and to follow other leaders and to keep building and bringing the best out of people. But that started it all for me.
Wow. That's so cool. All right. What kind of scholarship allowed you to attend Phoenix College?
Theater. Theater. Oh my goodness. Like I said, when I was a senior and went on to North High School, it was a huge opening for me. My drama teacher at the time allowed me not only to act, but to write. So as a senior in high school, I was writing plays and also taking movies and transposing them into plays and directing them. I dug it. I loved everything about it. I just realized that I had this talent to work with other people and bring the best out of them, especially actors or musicians. And that has stayed with me throughout this entire time. She taught me a lot of skills on how to communicate and really what the arts are. There's your visual arts, and yes, you see theater, but it's everything in the background and the passion and the commitment and the time that it takes to know your craft. Right. So all of those guidelines, all these people in my life that were just pushing me to go forward. I'm a lucky girl.
Indeed. All right. So how long has Carmela y Más been playing music? That's not possible.
Sure it is.
Wow.
1988.
Wow. That's amazing.
It goes by fast too. And throughout all those years, there have been different, ensembles. I've had small Latin jazz groups. I've had large orchestras. The one I have now is a 9-piece, and it's just tremendous. I love it. But yeah, I think I've worked with almost every musician in Phoenix and California, probably over the years. But that's what it takes. I mean, it's nothing is forever. Musicians grow, just like anything else. If you're good, you got to grow and keep going. And a lot of them, are not in town anymore, but a lot of them still aren't. And there's some of the masters on what our music is in Phoenix. I mean, we're not only country, we're rhythm and blues and jazz and funk and
and punk and country western.
Country and western.
Well, exactly. I mean, you've got the twang heard around the world. I mean, people are always amazed at how much music history there is in Arizona.
A lot of it. So much so that, people from Chicago have moved here to be part of what we have. Take it like Judy Roberts, as an example. People come here because of all the incredible music and the educational, colleges that we have. ASU is tremendous with their music program, as is Mesa Community College and Phoenix College. So yeah, we have a lot of art and musicians and culture here. It's amazing.
And I think it's so interesting that we're kind of going back to, it's like when I go through like newspapers from like the 50s and 60s, like every venue had live music. I mean, It was like, the barber shop is going to have music. And we're really kind of getting back to that now, which is kind of fun.
It's always been there, though. When you think about it, I explain this to people a lot. Without the arts, your life would be very dull. You would see in grayscale and that's it. And your auditory wouldn't be the same. Your heartbeat wouldn't be the same. I mean, we're all born with this inner beat. Your heartbeat is where it starts. Then where you take it from there musically is something else. But yeah, it's pretty intense, the arts here. And I'm just so lucky I've had a chance to either perform with people or produce them, which is what I enjoy doing now more than anything. Is putting people in situations where they can feature their arts and their music.
Very cool. All right. So our last question. So Carmela y Más has played as far away as
Himeji, Japan.
Wow. So how did that come about?
The city of Phoenix actually made the request to the Office of Protocol for us to go to Himeji to perform, and then Himeji would send someone over here to Phoenix in exchange. So we went up there and performed at their symphony hall along with an Australian bush band and a Japanese Dixieland band. And it was just one of the most amazing experiences ever. The guys from Australia were zookeepers, right? So they had these really long beards and they smelled like a zoo, right? And they'd start from drinking in the first thing in the morning, mate. You ain't had your beer yet? Come on. It was just like, wow. But it was like their instruments, were the old fashioned, just the bow on the tub and stuff like that. And the music that they made was amazing. And the Japanese Dixieland band, probably better than 80% of what I've seen here in the United States. They're just such good imitators and such good musicians themselves, and it was just like, wow. So it was the three of us on a cultural community concert for the people. It was like a People's Pops concert.
What fun. How long were you there?
Just for a week.
Still, but, you're like, just for a week.
Well, I think about it now. We were so busy while we were there because we were guests of the city, right? Which was the only way to go, believe me. But we were guests of the city of Himeji. So the mayor just treated us like gold and took us to his home after the concert, and his mother and his grandmother and his sisters and everything cooked this wonderful buffet for us. And it was just amazing. The whole thing was amazing. The culture, the beauty, the intensity of the Japanese, just wow. And their musicianship was like, wow. Not only the Dixieland that we heard, but everything else that was going on. It's really funny because, Rebecca, my director, and I, went to Himeji. We met all these wonderful people, and they assigned us these young women from the mayor's office, et cetera, to escort us around and whatnot. And they're very timid still, but it was 1988. Very, very timid and not really outspoken at all. And we're telling these girls, hey, you shouldn't take that, you should say something. If something is on your mind, blah, 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 blah. And they look at, oh, you think so? We're going, yeah, come on now. This is the new age, right? By the time we left, I'm sure the men that were, part of the project just said, get them out of here. And it was really funny because when that second group did come to perform in Phoenix, that same entourage was with them. And those girls came in with an attitude.
Not for long.
Yeah, it was great. It was, oh, yeah, we remember you. So, goodness. Hope I didn't get in trouble. I hope you can get you in trouble.
Wow. So I always like to end just kind of asking people how they did. And so that way people can just kind of see, because you shared some really cool stories that are just such a launch pad for so many more. There's so many places like the Arizona Memory Project to take a look and go onto a deep dive of oral histories from like the Riverside Ballroom. Some of the photos of Riverside Ballroom are just amazing. And so I always said to people, it's like, it's not really matter about what you got right or wrong, but just look at all you now know. So that just because of that, we are all winners. So Carmela, thank you so much for being on Arizona History Happy Hour. Now, if somebody wanted to go see Carmela y Más, do you have any gigs coming up?
Yes, our next one is in Glendale, actually, at the West Side Blues and Jazz Club. It's off of 59th and Bell. We're there once a month. We're taking in a cool show. It's called Cubop, Cuban Bop. And we are reviewing some of the Latin vibe artists like Tito Puente or Cal Jader. This guy by the name of Brett Reed is coming in to play the xylophones and jam with us. It's Latin jazz. We'll be doing the salsa and everything else, but this aspect is really the Latin jazz. It's really cool. Cubop.
No, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And what's the date for that?
May 14th.
All right. So people, you have a chance to get that on your calendar. So that way you can zip on out to West Side.
Yeah. Or go to my website. It has my calendar dates.
Okay. And what's your website?
CarmelaRamirez.com.
All right. Very good. So please do. And please follow and keep tabs on where else Carmela is performing so you can hear her great voice. So, Carmela, again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Marshall, and thanks for all you do. It's amazing what you're doing with your program. We need you. We need this. We need to know more about ourselves here in Arizona. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your night.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, my gosh. That was so much fun. So many great stories. And I'm sure we could have gone in a lot more stories. But so we are now at our segment from the vault. And so we're going to talk about Gilbert, Arizona. I was just out there for a gig, and, it was so interesting because, it's like Arizona has so many little communities. And so being out in Gilbert, I heard people that weren't from Gilbert kind of saying disparaging things, but Gilbert's got some cool stuff going on. And one of the coolest, I think, is the riparian preserve at the Water Ranch. So back in 99, they were basically dealing with wastewater storage. And out of that, they developed a 110-acre wildlife habitat called the Riparian Preserve at Water Ranch. It's out near Guadalupe and Greenfield Roads. And it includes a library, fishing lake, a park, a fire station. So if you ever get a chance to go out there, please do. It's so much fun. They attract around 200 species of birds out there. And there are thousands of people who visit annually. They have given out about 8,000 maps each year. So they know there's that many people, plus the folks who don't need a map, or folks like me who would just be like, I'm just going to go wander and see what I can find. So next time you're out in Gilbert, swing by and check out the Riparian Preserve. You will be oh so happy you did. So now you'll see why I always say, if you're watching on Facebook, you really should just click that little share button because of all the fun we get to have with Arizona history. And next week is going to be a really special episode because we are going to be up in Fountain Hills at Bone House Brewery. So that is going to be next Thursday night, 7 o'clock, same bat time, same bat channel. And we'll be over at the Bone House Brewery. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I think we're going to get some beer history as well as some trivia, possibly about Fountain Hills. And it's just going to be a fun adventure out there. So remember, if you have any stories, suggestions, things you would like to see, please send me a note. If you weren't able to make it in the chat, please just send me something because I love to hear from you all. Now, as we get ready to wind out, I always love to do a thank you to Chris and Cole, who did the great video intro, and as well to PJ, my cocktail advisor. And so as we say good night, we're going to close out with Velveeta, who is a local musician now in San Francisco, and their original song called Lost Dutchman Mine.
Old Jake Waltz was a miner. They said he found a gold mine while riding out one day. He headed into town, his saddlebags filled with gold. Ready to take your baby ride. The old man never told. You can search and pray that you might find the hidden treasure of the lost Dutchman's mine. You like it, you'll never will. The superstition
Cowboy beware.